Let's talk about autism and face blindness. Hey, folks, welcome to the Autistic Adoptee channel. As the channel name suggests, I am both autistic and I am an adoptee. So, autism very regularly comes with comorbidities, meaning other simultaneous conditions. For instance, you may be autistic and an ADHDer, or you may be autistic and have sleep disorders, or you may be autistic and have an anxiety disorder. You get what I'm saying, right? So these comorbid conditions may or may not be directly related to autism or stem from autism in some way. They may or may not even intersect with autism in terms of how they impact your life. But most often, there is some degree of interplay between autism and whatever comorbidity you do or don't have, right? In this episode, we're going to talk about autism and face blindness. Face blindness is clinically known as prosopagnosia. And prosopagnosia comes in two flavors. There is a perceptive prosopagnosia, which is having difficulty perceiving and or processing facial features, which leads to difficulty in recognizing people. And there is associative prosopagnosia, which is being able to you're actually able to perceive facial features, but you have difficulty associating those features with a particular person or a specific meaning or emotion. And additionally, there are two sources of prosopagnosia, two ways of catching prosopagnosia. It can be congenital, meaning that you are born with it, which is basically just a physiological or genetic type of thing, right? And there is acquired prosopagnosia, in which you acquire it later in life, generally following a brain injury of some sort, like a stroke or Alzheimer's disease or head trauma or whatever. But like everything else in life, face blindness is a spectrum in terms of its severity, how severely it impacts a person, and how it manifests or presents itself, what kind of symptoms it brings. From the studies that I've been able to find, somewhere around 2 or 2.5% of the general population have some degree of prosopagnosia, some degree of face blindness. And in contrast to that, as many as 30% of autistic folks have some degree of face blindness. So personally, I have always struggled with names and faces. And as I mentioned in a previous episode, I have trouble conjuring faces in my head. I have trouble imagining the faces of a person, the face of a person in my head, even if I know that person very well. And while I've been hit in the head a lot, my trouble with names and faces extends back as far as I can remember. So I think for me, it's probably more of a congenital type of condition than an acquired condition. But I have been hit in the head a lot, so, you know. Um, so for me, I'm clearly not at the far end of the face blindness spectrum in terms of severity. And I am able to identify facial features. So it's more of the associative flavor of prosopagnosia than the apperceptive flavor. And it manifests both in difficulty recognizing people and in recognizing meaning or emotion in people's faces. Um, I can't always recognize when people are happy or sad or bored or what other, any other emotion that they're expressing or experiencing. I have trouble identifying that by looking at their face alone. I am very good, however, at spotting anger on people's faces. And that's very much a self-protective, self-defensive type of mechanism that I've learned to protect myself because of my childhood. My struggle with faces often manifests when I encounter people out of context. Actors, for instance, I struggle to recognize them from one show or movie to the next. I'll often be like, "Hey, have we seen that actor before in something else?" And my wife will be like, "Oh yeah, they were in whatever show, whatever movie." And then I'll be like, "Oh, that's where I know them from. Yeah. Okay." Um, I experience this same contextual difficulty with people that I know personally, not just, strangers on a screen. If Because sometimes I'll know a person personally, I might even know them well, but only in one context. As an example, my wife and I ran into one of my coworkers in a Walmart once a long time ago when I was still working. It wasn't until the end of the conversation, and we had chit-chatted for a few minutes or so. It was only at the end of the conversation that I realized who it was when he said, "Later, Tad, I'll see you at work." As he was walking away, it clicked, and I turned to my wife. And I said, "Oh, that was Dave, fake name." She laughed and said, "Ha, I recognized him immediately." Because we've always joked about, my trouble with faces and names. So it was very good natured laughing. Dave is somebody that I worked with every workday. I ate lunch with on most of those days. I had even met his wife at work events. My wife, by contrast, had only met Dave at those same work events, and she was able to recognize him immediately and easily, and I didn't recognize him at all until the end of the conversation when he gave me the context clue of working together. But to be fair to me, he was wearing shorts, a t-shirt, and a baseball cap, not the business casual attire that I was used to him wearing, used to seeing him in. So clearly, there was no way to recognize him. He was completely in disguise. Another time, while grocery shopping with my wife, I saw her talking with someone, and I was an aisle or two away or something like that. And at this point in my life, I was very high masking. So I went over to be polite and to be social. And as I approached, my wife said to him, "You remember my husband, Tad, right?" And so, like I said, I was very high masking at the time. And I was very enthusiastic. I said, "Hey, how are you?" And I did that handshake and bro hug type of thing. So embarrassing. Looking back on it, I can recognize the look of confusion on my wife's face, on his face, but at the time I didn't register it at all. And we had some awkward small talk and chit chat, and then And then we parted ways. And later, my wife was like, "You know who that is, right?" And I didn't know who it was. But I thought he looked familiar. I thought he was one of her theater friends. And so I told her that. I said, "Well, I was trying to be nice to your friend. He is a theater friend, right? I've met him before." Um, and she said, "Well, I know him from theater, but he's not really a friend. And the last time you met him, you said you didn't like him at all, that he gave you a bad vibe." All I could say to that was, "Oh," because I'm that brilliant, right? That was my brilliant response. Um, I've had other incidents like that at work, at school, in my personal life. It's been an ongoing struggle. It's definitely been an ongoing struggle. And the other part of face blindness, the part of not being able to read expressions, that part, that's also been an ongoing struggle. Just like not recognizing the look and confusion on my wife's face and on this guy's face as I bro hugged him. Side note, I hugged him because a lot of my wife's theater friends at the time were very much hugging type of people. And as I said, I was very high masking at the time, and I was trying to match and fit in with their social conventions. And anyways, I wasn't able to read their expressions. I wasn't able to read their facial expressions to know that I'd completely misstepped with the bro hug. Just went right past me, right? Similarly, my wife and I have friends who are also a married couple, and one of them is a singer. She has an absolutely lovely voice, but her wife is not a naturally musical person, in the same way that my wife is not a naturally musical person. So my wife and our non-singer friend decided to surreptitiously take a singing class so that the non-singer could surprise her wife with a song. And I can't remember if it was like for a special occasion, like a birthday or an anniversary or something. I don't know. Anyways, it was supposed to be a surprise. So we were hanging out one evening. We were hanging out with them one evening, and I had apparently been told that the singing class was supposed to be a surprise, but that information clearly didn't register in my long-term memory because I asked our non-singer friend if she'd picked out her song for class yet. They were to pick out a song that would be their final exam for the class or something like that, right? Our singer friend was clearly confused by this because she had no notion that her wife and my wife were taking the singing class. My wife and the non-singer friend were trying to tell me with their faces to shut the F up. And they tried to redirect the conversation. But clueless me, I didn't read any of that. I didn't read it in their tone, in their words, or in their faces. So I kept going with, "No, really, have you chosen what you're going to sing?" And I totally blew the surprise, but is the upshot of that story. So another story is from work. And for context, you need to know that I'm very good at eating. Like, this is something that I excel at. It is a immense natural talent that I have developed into this tremendous skill. I am very good at eating. So, my lunch group at work was a bunch of other guys who pretty much fall into that whole manly man type of category. We had several of them were former military. They all liked sports and ripping on each other, and everything was a competition, right? At the time, I held the group's lunch break weight gain record. There was a scale right outside the cafeteria, and we'd weigh ourselves on the way in to the cafeteria and on the way out to see who had eaten the most food, who had gained the most weight. And the previous record was somewhere, as I think it was 5 pounds, somewhere around there. Our company, near Thanksgiving, would do a Thanksgiving dinner for lunch, right? They would do turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, gravy, all of it. And I decided that I was not just going to go for the record. I wasn't just going to break it. I was going to shatter that record. And I was going to set the bar so high that no one would ever be able to touch it. And I did. 8 pounds of turkey stuffing, mashed potatoes, gravy, all the rest in one 40-minute lunch break. I ate 8 pounds of food in one 40-minute lunch break. Like I said, I am very good at eating. 8 pounds. And it hurts so bad, I can't even tell you. So anyway, I held the weight gain record. And we had someone new join the lunch group. And his first lunch with us, someone brought up the weight gain record. And he was like, oh, yeah, I could totally do that. And a week or so later, the lunch group was just me, the new guy, and one other regular. Let's call him Bruce. Everybody else had meetings or something else, or something like that, or some event they were going to. I don't know. But it was just the three of us: me, the new guy, and Bruce. We'll call the other guy Bruce. So searching for a topic of conversation, I asked the new guy when he was going to go for the record, and his response was, I'm not going to do that. And so looking back on it, and I've looked back on this interaction a lot for other reasons. The interaction just kind of bothers me in general, not just for this. But so looking back on it, I can now see that there was a look of irritation on his face when I asked that question. But I didn't read that in his tone, and I didn't read it in his face in the moment. It's only looking back on it that I can see this. Bruce, however, did see it. He did clock it, and he gave me one of those drop it kind of looks, right? Which I also missed. I can only see that now, looking like with hindsight. So at the time, because I didn't see it, I didn't register his irritation. I didn't register Bruce's drop it look. So I said, why not? And the new guy responded, because it's stupid, which confused me a lot. And it also I was kind of proud of that weight gain record, and he was calling it stupid. So I instantly fired back, but you said you would. And again, looking back on the situation, I can see that he was very irritated by this at this point. But of course, in the moment, I didn't see that at all. And he responded with, well, you know what it's like, new guy trying to fit in. Bruce's pointed look had become piercing. And he quietly said, Tad, and gave me a little head shake. I missed all of the social cues, right? I missed the social messaging that I now see was clearly plastered across Bruce's face, and I missed the irritation that was clearly plastered on the new guy's face. And I plowed on with, no, I don't know what it's like. My integrity doesn't allow me to say I'll do something that I have no intention of doing, especially if I think it's stupid. If I think it's stupid, I'll say it's stupid. Anyhow, the new guy went on a totally defensive rant and never ate lunch with our lunch group ever again. And yeah. So in general, one of the attributes of autism is missing social cues, right? And I'm beginning to think that associative face blindness might be one of the leading contributors to missing social cues. I wonder if there is an equivalent in terms of not being able to read tone in what we hear when people say things, or that's something to research, right? Or if you know something about it that I don't, you can save me the research and leave it in a comment below, along with any other questions, story, thought, or insight into prosopagnosia, into face blindness that you might have. You can leave those down below. Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, remember to drop a like and leave a comment or a question down below. If you're new here, subscribe and ring the notification bell for more content like this. Until the next video, keep living your best life and know that you deserve it.